Welcome, relational leaders and listeners. This is Cultivate, your podcast destination where we celebrate thriving relational leaders and encourage each other along the influence journey. I am Wendy F. Adams, your host and strategic guide. In each episode, I will engage with leaders who are sharing authentic stories that support impactful influence. I believe work shouldn't be a four-letter word, but should inspire, challenge, and fulfill. Through a high challenge and high support model, we will explore the recipe for relational leadership that drives meaningful change. You will gain insights from leaders who face the same challenges you may encounter and discover strategies to navigate them with resilience and purpose. Today, we're diving into the world of people-first leadership with an incredible guest, Michele Freeman. With 18 years of experience in the nonprofit sector, Michele is currently shaping the future of workplace culture as the Chief People Officer at Thinkery, Austin's beloved children's museum. She's passionate about creating strong people practices that fuel both employee and organizational growth. Michele is a lifelong learner, actively engaging with leadership communities like Leadership Austin and the Strategic HR Forum. But perhaps her most rewarding leadership role? Being a mom to her high school senior, an experience that has shaped her perspective in ways no boardroom ever could. Michele brings a wealth of insight, heart, and energy to today's conversation. So get ready for an inspiring and people-centered discussion. If you're seeking healthy leadership engagement in an open, empowering, and authentic environment, then you're in the right place. After all, as leaders, we're either driving progress or we're driving the problem. So let's grow together. Well, welcome to a fresh episode of Cultivate. Today, we have an inspiring leader who is redefining empowerment. Michele Freeman, Chief People Officer at Thinkery. Michele, we are thrilled to have you here for the Cultivate experience.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Oh, this is going to be so much fun. Our time in the green room has already had me so excited, and you've got me popping off with so many fresh ideas. So love it. And you know, like every engaging conversation, our time together is going to fly by. So we're going to jump right in. And although I've had the pleasure, Michele, of learning a little bit more about you, I want you to tell the audience just a bit about your role and how Thinkery is making an impact in your community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my role at Thinkery is Chief People Officer, and I've been in that role for slightly over a year, but I've been working in the nonprofit HR space since about 2015, and I love working in HR for a lot of reasons, because I love coaching and developing people. Thinkery is a STEAM-based children's museum in Austin, Texas, and our vision is to cultivate a joy of lifelong learning for all children. So, I have a 18-year-old, and it's really fun to be able to go to the children's museum every day and see these little kids enjoying their time, getting tactile and learning about things when they don't even realize that they're learning. So,
wow, isn't that really so much fun for all of us when learning can be so fun that it doesn't have that stigma of I'm learning something?
right.
I know I enjoy that space with my niece and nephews as they teach me as much as I teach them, but that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
But I so appreciate that. You mentioned, yes, your tenure at Thinkery may not be as long, but of course deep. Your time in HR a little more expanded, but you have been in the nonprofit world for quite a bit of time and spending time there shaping workplace culture.
Mhm.
What's the biggest lesson from your journey to this point that still actually surprises you today?
I think the biggest lesson that surprises me is that there's literally always something that you can learn every day. I mean, obviously, like I've had a long time working as a professional in the workspace, and just I learn something new every day. Honestly, like I can't think of something that I've learned yet today, but there's always something new. And that's, work places change, like work culture changes. And I just love, like, for myself as a professional, having an open mind enough to know that, like, I don't have all the answers, and that even people who are new to their roles can teach us something.
I love that. I love that. And that's such an openness, right? That's what I'm hearing from you. Like you come in with that as the expectation.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that that translates into those that you are working shoulder to shoulder with and those that you're leading. You know, in the nonprofit space, it's mission driven, right? That's
Hmm.
our why. What's your why? The organization, those should be aligned. And with that, you know, we're talking about fun and children learning,
Hmm.
and we're learning alongside. That comes with at times an emotional taxing because we've got maybe more need than we have resource, whether that's the time resource, a dollar resource. What keeps you motivated in that mission driven kind of emotionally pulling space?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've worked in nonprofits for a long time, and the reason that I stay in nonprofits is I really do love the sector and what they can do for, I mean, humanity as a whole. I've worked
Mm-hmm.
in multiple types of organizations, including international development organizations, and all over the world, there are organizations doing what, uh, you know, um, government or other
Mm.
entities like that can't do, like filling the gap there.
Yes.
And I love that. And I love that it brings communities together and gives people the opportunity to get either services they need or access to arts or just access to community. So that's what keeps me going.
Keeps
And
keeps those space plates spinning, as we like to say.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it can get frustrating, but it also is really rewarding when you know that it's made a difference in one person's life.
And it and you're right. You touched on it, right? It's about the one, but then that one exponentially because then they have a one and they're one. And so just
Hmm.
knowing that you're making that type of impact. I love that you bring that, you know, to the forefront and how you tie that into your own why. You know, you mentioned that you've got an 18-year-old. So that's
Hmm.
a senior. That's a
Yeah.
special time and a special, you know, special season for him, right? It's your son?
Yes. Yeah.
How has parenting shaped your leadership style in ways that maybe you didn't expect?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about this at work a lot that I'm not an expert in leadership. I love leadership and I love leadership development, and I strive to be a good leader so that I can model that for my son. I mean, that is the whole reason why I want to be a good leader and learn
Mm-hmm.
good leadership skills, because I've learned a lot of that from parenting books and I've learned a lot of it from leadership books. I mean, at a certain time, well, I mean, children always become their own person, but at a certain time you have less agency over how they live their lives. And so if you can guide them with good philosophy and good tools that are proven to work, like I can only just hope that my son does good in the world. I mean, that's really why I want to be a good leader, and that I can reflect that for him and for the people I work with.
What a fantastic motivator, right? And
Yeah.
and speaks to that self-awareness that we are that 360-degree person that comes into the office that also goes home, right? And
Yep.
we're not these different people, but being aware of who's showing up, who's coming into the space and recognizing that whether we think about it or not, which we need to be intentional, we are being looked at. We are
Hmm.
being observed, right? Your son can tell us things, people at work could tell of who shows up and what they're gleaning even beyond what we speak.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I
Yes. We
love
are
that.
always modeling for somebody.
That is so true. That is so true. And you know that speaks into to culture, right? We throw words around like people and culture and how important that is, and they can become like buzzwords.
Mhm.
But that's really deeply personal to you and impactful. I know that we've had some dialogue around that. What's a hard truth? Because you know we learn in the hard.
Yeah.
What's a hard truth about workplace culture that you think and have experienced that leaders often overlook or kind of sidestep?
Yeah. Well, two things. So I think that a lot of organizations and a lot of, like senior managers or senior
Mm,
director, leader, C suite type people, right? Like a lot of leadership teams pin culture on
mm,
the people or HR department. And it's not a one department function. It has to actually, in my opinion, come from the very top and then it is spread
yes.
down because you know, everybody again has to be a part of it. So that's a hard piece when sometimes that doesn't happen, or you have to really be pushing people to be a part of that. The other piece is sometimes employees don't want to be a part of that. And, you know, motivating them to want to be a part of building the culture, having the culture that they want, or maybe their vision is different than what others want. So that is tough. It's tough to meet everybody's expectation of what culture looks like.
But you said it really well. It's defining that it's everybody's responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
We say this often in the nonprofit sector, that we say it, but then the reality of living it out, it's a culture of philanthropy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
even fundraising, that doesn't just land in that department. We all have to bring that to, well, it's the same thing about culture. The culture of the organization, well, let's face it, we are the organization. It's not the
Yeah.
brick and mortar, it's not the walls that are around us. And it certainly isn't just the C suite or just the employee. It's an and both. And I think HR does have that unique privilege and challenge to
Mm-hmm.
remind both sides of that. We don't like it. Let's be about the change, right? And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, I love that space that you bring that you bring us to, and like, guess what, guys? It's all of us. You've given us a look into some of what Tinkery is doing, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really all about sparking curiosity in children. And I
Yeah.
know that when I get to observe that in a child, I mean, we talk about childlike faith and we talk about seeing things through the eyes of a child. It's because they're so curious. Sometimes that spark seems to not be as bright as we get older. How do you spark curiosity and engagement in your team?
Um, I mean, I think I share my own. I mean, my team is pretty small, but I always talk with the coordinator that I work with about things that are interesting to me and areas that I've
Mhm.
had to, learn more about. Um, and I try to think about like the entire scope of a business and areas that I feel like are not my strength. And that's where I seek to like learn different things as I grow in my professional career, set annual goals for our organization and also for myself and for my team. And so I try to guide people that I'm working with to think about something that like you're not doing every day, but that could apply to your role or help you learn your role better. And let's think about how you can learn that. I mean, for me, a personal example, like I know I'm stronger in finance now than I was when I first started in my career. I'm not an accountant. It's a very like behind the wall thing for me, even though I'm involved with our finance team now. But I joined a board specifically to be able to really understand nonprofit finance. And, I think if you don't find some way of educating yourself like that, like you're going to pretend or spend a lot of time Googling what something means.
No, I love that. I'm laughing here trying to stay in my seat, because I would often say, as a frontline fundraiser, like I ask for, like, I invite people in, collect the dollars. I don't want to do anything else with it. Please don't make me deal with the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that is what brought me a deeper connection to the work. It actually broke those silos down between finance and accounting and fundraising, which we need to work together. So those
Mhm.
spaces, I love that you were brave enough to say, "This is not my thing, but it's going to make me better." And your team gets to see that, small as it might be. Your son gets to see that, right? and
Yeah.
and the leaders that you're reporting to get to see. We're all called into that space of what I coach in, a 70-30, right? You want to be spending time, about 70% of your time, in that unconscious competence, like breathing, life-giving space, the things that we're
Mhm.
really good at. And that 30%, we don't need that to be a 100%. You need that 30% of that tougher, engaging, taking more of your time and more of your energy, because that's what sharpens you. That
Yeah.
learning space is what sharpens us. And so you spoke that out really, really well as something that we all need to be aware of, and really to be excited about.
Yeah.
Um,
And
you
I
know,
think you
it
realize it's not that scary and you probably know more than you think.
I love
That's
it.
what I
I
learned.
love it. It's, well, because it's the unknown, right? We can pick it's that unknown space. We got to take the training wheels off. But
Yep.
that, then once they are, you are so free. Oh God, just took me back to 7 years old, flying down the road, right? So we're talking about these moments that have kind of like been those changing spaces, those eye opening. What's a moment in your career where you had to, back to that tough space, make a tough call? Maybe it went against the conventional wisdom and kind of against the grain, but you knew
Hmm.
it was absolutely the right move.
That's a great question. I mean, probably for myself, when it came time, when I knew that I had to leave a position just because
Mm,
the position wasn't aligning with my personal values, like the
yeah.
organization did great work. The people I work with were great people, but there were some things that I personally believed we should be doing in a different way. And I understand, I'm speaking also from a place of privilege here that I was able to do that without having to stay there. But it was just something I felt really strongly about, and my leadership team didn't feel as strongly about. And I just, for my own
Hmm.
sanity and my own, integrity, had to find something else, even though I hadn't been there for very long. And I certainly am not like someone who, is moving all around all the time, but I couldn't put myself in that situation to stay when it didn't align with who I was.
Well, when I tell you to hear that from human resources from a personal standpoint, that is empowering. And really, like, I just want to sit in that a little bit because I often speak into those that I'm coaching about maybe there's that point of the self-select. I may be talking to a
Hmm.
leader like, "Oh, we've got team members who just don't seem alive." Okay, well, we've got this is the why of the organization, and we're going to bring everyone into the space and equip. And there may be some who go, this is not for me. And that's not a bad thing. That
Yeah.
self-selection to be able to that's freeing, right?
Hmm.
There is so much freedom in that space. And to hear HR say, look, I've had to do that. I've been in that place and space. I think that you just gave some people some real permission to step into, gosh, it is important for me to be self-aware, right? It's not
Yeah.
something just to say.
Yes, I
So
hope so. And it's
yeah.
hard. And I think we're getting better at it, like in the workplace. Like I think
Yes.
that is something I have definitely grown in my own career, is sharing with other managers and other leaders. Like it is okay if this doesn't work for somebody, or to just be honest about what we can do as an organization. And if somebody chooses to leave because of that, then maybe that's the best thing, because you don't want someone working someplace where it's not a fit, or they're constantly trying to change something that just can't be changed.
Absolutely. But because you're at that point, it is a detriment to both the organization and the individual. And it can be just the opposite. That's that freedom place for us to both grow when that's, but you're creating safe space for that conversation. That
Hmm.
that has to be there. If there's not a place to have that conversation, then yeah, we get the quiet quitting, we get all of those type of things, and then we're just stagnant. So
Yeah.
kudos to
Well,
you
thank
in
you.
in speaking that out even in this space. One of the things that I always want to make sure that's emphasized through Cultivate as this podcast conversation is that we are here to
Hmm.
celebrate those type of things, and we're here to support in what is the challenging spaces. So we don't shy away from what's hard, because we don't have all the answers, but we
Hmm.
are going to be better together in it. So nonprofit leaders, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're expected to do quite a bit with pretty limited resources.
Yep.
We go back to not just the dollars, but time, people resource. How do you speak into that burnout space for yourself, for your team? And what does that conversation look like with your leadership?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, and it's definitely hard to, have the conversation, to say no. I mean, our leadership
Mm,
team, I think in the last year that I've been at Thinkery, I mean, our leadership team has been intentional and getting even more intentional about talking about, okay, well, does something meet our mission? And our mission is fairly broad, to
mm,
lead the future of STEAM learning experiences for all children. Like, I mean, that's a lot. Um, and so that can mean a lot of different things. And then, so how do we narrow it down to really focus on things that actually align with our mission as we expect them to? Because when you start to say yes to too many things, that definitely does burn people
mm.
out. Um, And if we're asked to do something, we ask, and oftentimes you still have to do both things, but at least asking, if I do this, like what becomes the lower priority, and sometimes nothing, you know. So I think it just is trying to really be intentional about like the work that we're doing and the partnerships that we want to have externally. But like I said, it's not always foolproof, and there's definitely times people are burned out, and just trying to be able to be as flexible to give them space to take time off when they need to, or hear their stressors, you know, is the best that we can do in some circumstances.
Well, and what I'm hearing is again having the conversation, not making it a place where we can't speak that out. The answer may not be. I mean, again, we're looking for what is that kind of common ground space. Where
Mm-hmm.
do we need to pivot? Where does there need to? We may not be able to address it right in this moment. We won't address it at all if we don't allow for the conversation. And so that is a place I want to encourage you as you are doing that and walking that out. And then for our listeners, it isn't a magic wand. We're
Mm-hmm.
nothing that we're talking about here just gets to, we wave it and it takes place. That's one of the challenging things about the nonprofit space that we're in. It's people, which means
Yeah.
it's messy, right? There's a lot of moving components there. And we can all say, hey, if I did have a magic wand, this is what I would do. Here's where I would more hours in the day. I said this yesterday. If I could just have 4 more hours, you know what? I'd want 4 more and then more.
Right.
So the bottom line is those resources are limited. So how can we, with who we do have in the space, make sure that they're the healthiest so that we
Mm-hmm.
can get not just the most, but the best. You said saying no is hard, and it is, but it's
Mm-hmm.
being able to say no so we can say yes to the better and best yeses. And that then makes the no not so, that stings. No, because we're actually moving the needle forward. Great points there. Really, really
Yeah.
great points. Leading in a nonprofit sector, right? It
Mm-hmm.
comes with, like we said, unique challenges. Right now, as you and your leadership are walking through the spaces, is there something specifically that you're tackling as you're trying to shape like the strategy? We all talk about strategic plans, but the strategies you're moving through 25, seeing what's coming ahead for you. What are those pressing issues that you're really tackling?
Yeah. I mean, I think, keeping employees engaged is
Mm,
definitely a tough one. We have a lot of our staff who are working with customers on a daily basis, and that can be very tiring for people, or just a lot. I mean, our leadership team does try to spend time on the museum floor as well, and I mean, it is tiring to be in a customer facing role.
yes.
So, like, setting expectations for our staff is definitely a challenge. Um, I think streamlining and being intentional about the projects that we do want to spend time on. I mean, our organization has recently expanded into a satellite location, and we work with school districts around Central Texas, and we do lots of external partnerships with other organizations. And so just really being intentional about how we continue those and who we do partner with, I think is the biggest piece, just because it's easy to get overwhelmed when there's a lot of other things going on besides just operating our main program, which is our museum space.
And you talked about right up front in that space of the front facing, with community, being in it every day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, how often does your leadership get that opportunity to be in that front facing space with the community?
Yeah, I mean, we have just started in the last few months being, you know, after feedback and insights from our staff, like being more intentional about our admin based leadership staff being on the floor and being a part of the organization, which I think we all inherently knew was, important to do,
Mm-hmm.
and not that we didn't do it, but like doing it on a more regular
Yes.
cadence and really being a part of that, or making sure you are visible and seeing our staff and things. So we are trying to get better at it while also trying to do our jobs, which are not on the museum floor.
Yes. Yes. It's a balancing act. I love that you have staff. That says something. That says something
Hmm.
about them. It says something about leadership. It definitely says something about you and your team and human resources really making each of those components knowledgeable of what the other needs, right? And speaking out. Yes, we hear you, and this is what we can do, and bringing that into reality. I would love, and of course this is not where that is, but to be able to hear from your leadership as they have that opportunity, how it really changes the
Hmm.
way that they do the day-to-day job that they have when they're really front facing with the why. That's
Yeah.
what that's what that is. So really good, really, really good.
Yeah. We need, I
It,
mean, and we need, like I said, we need to continue it and and make sure we maintain it, because I
yeah.
think it's important for our staff to know that we are there with them as well.
Yes, yes, not just in name only. And that's a
Hmm.
challenge for all of us, right? As we move into our different spaces and again have those opportunities to now be in more of that visionary space
Hmm.
and working on the organization and the mission versus maybe in it on a day-to-day basis, keeping those balances or keeping those activities in balance. We talk about compensation. That's a big piece in
Yeah.
especially in the nonprofit space, and how that can be a struggle. Other opportunities for conversation have said, look, we're trying to level up in that space. We got to let people know that that's where they're seeing that value or
Hmm.
not seeing that value. And then there's the work life balance.
Hmm.
Then there's the growth and career opportunities, people telling you where they want to go. There are all of these things that are pulling and kind of tugging at us individually. And then you have human resources, and you said this kind of in the green room. People think you know it all. Even,
Hmm.
HR has all of the answers. Of those things, what are you feeling the most pull or as your team is working towards, that you're hearing from your staff more that they need your help in or that they're challenged in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, a lot of the things that like we're hearing for everybody. Of course, compensation, and we
Mm-hmm.
are a nonprofit organization. And like I said, I've been on a board, and that I'm not in fundraising because I am the first person to tell funders that like we can't do your programs if we don't have money to pay our people. And I, believe firmly that a lot of funders should be a little less restrictive with funding so that it can go towards operations, because we can't do good programs without great
Without.
people.
Mhm.
um, so definitely the
Did
compensation.
we hear that? Did we hear that, people? That's real talk.
um, Definitely the compensation, and just being clear and direct with people about career paths. Like we
Mm-hmm.
are, I mean, we have a decent number of employees, but at the end of the day, we're a small organization in terms of like opportunities for growth. And I try to be very transparent with people that we're bringing on board or interviewing, that you may not be able to make your way up through an organization like this quickly, but you can take on different projects and learning opportunities to build your portfolio of work and learn new things. But you may not move from one role to the next senior level role because we just don't have that many opportunities. So I mean, I think you could ask anybody on my team. I am definitely a firm believer in just telling people the truth and not trying to like say that we do all of these things that we can't do. We're really good about providing work-life balance and giving people time off and all of those things. And I think that's a positive, but I think it's, job expectations and
Yes.
opportunities and the compensation are for sure the hardest pieces.
Well, and you said it. I mean, what people will remember and really what they value is that you were upfront. Like
Hmm.
you set an expectation that I say this often. I may not like the answer, but I can count on the answer. If you've been clear with me, then I know how to set
Yeah.
my expectations, right? And so I think that is a key component to the role that you're in and what your team is doing for staff, so that they know how, okay, I can ask this question safely and I know that I'm going to get a real answer. So I
Hmm.
have to imagine that is a place that they really do appreciate your leadership.
I hope
You
so.
know,
And trying
we
to equip
talked.
our other managers as well to feel comfortable saying the same thing, right? Like, I mean, you can't be in a one-on-one with somebody and let them know they're going to have this great opportunity because they may not.
No, no, no. And if there is an opportunity, what that cost will be for them and the organ. So if it can be a thing, this is what it will take, and that it is a together. It is going to take
Hmm.
both sides to make that a reality, right? So
Yes.
no, let's not crush anybody's dreams, but let's also make it
No.
a very realistic picture. I hear you. I
Yes.
hear you in that. I hear you in that space. We know, and we said this earlier, you've got a son who is on the verge of, a brand new world that's coming.
Yeah.
You and I have been there in the past. If you had to have that conversation with your younger self sitting at 18, just starting out, the world is your oyster, as they say. What's that one piece of advice that you wish you had received then, or that you would give that younger self as you're branching out?
I would tell them to uh, say yes to things that sound outside of something you might not think or is interesting or that you want to do. Just try it. And if it doesn't work, you can do something else. And then one that, like, I think I probably heard at some point in my career. I don't know if I heard it like when I was just branching out, but like, have to be respectful and kind to everybody because you're
Mm.
probably going to run into somebody again. And the world is so small that, how you treat people is really what's going to stand out and what is going to give you opportunities. And so even if you're mad at somebody, like you can still be kind.
I love it. I love that you said kind and not nice.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is a difference, but we tend to sometimes use those interchangeably. And kind is that space of where I'm going to be speak truth, but in a loving
Hmm.
manner. Like I'm not going to compromise and just sugarcoat. This is really what's happening. And maybe it's a conversation with someone, whether that be yourself in that self-awareness space, and then to be others aware to say, here's an opportunity for growth. Notice I didn't say a weakness. I'd say this to
Yeah.
all of my HR friends. It's only a weakness when we don't actually address it, when we are aware of it and then we don't do anything to step into that space. But I love that kind, which,
Yeah.
here, like that gets lost too often or kind of sidestepped. And we're missing out. We're missing out when
Hmm.
we take that. I feel like that's something we have to trade off to get the job done, or to just move forward. Um, I love when we get towards the end to kind of do some little rapid fire questions to get a little more insight into who's Michelle. And you might have already touched on this answer, but what's one leadership value that you never compromise on?
Yeah. I mean, integrity is definitely like my number one. That is me. One of my top books is the Four Agreements. I have it on my desk. I
Mm,
have it in my car, and I mean, you can count on me to do what I'm gonna do. If I say I'm going to do something, I take things, very seriously when it comes to integrity, and I don't like to compromise my personal integrity, and I don't want to work for an organization that's going to compromise their integrity or that of anybody in the organization. So that's really like top for me.
I love it. I love it. And to put that out there, that people know that about you, that again, they can count on your word is your word,
Hmm.
and that you're not going to put anyone else in that position. So uh, obviously, as a fellow human, we say thank you. And then in human resources, oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The next, and this is really important, people, get ready for this answer. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, right now I'm loving, well, it's basically chocolate chip mint. It's called grasshopper. But even
Uh-huh.
as a kid, chocolate chip mint has been one of my favorite
All
flavors.
right.
But
Falling, you
I mean,
feeling
I'm
in.
not that picky with ice cream.
Well, so what I'm hearing is a little Andes candy kind of feel. That's what that is, mint
Yep.
chocolate. All right, all right. Well, these are important things to know. And so then, what do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about human resources?
I think that one of the biggest misconceptions is that human resources is only there to like protect the company.
Mm.
And yes, that is part of our job. And it is also to advocate for employees. And it's a very fine balance to do both of those things. And so, yeah, but I think most people who aren't working in an organization that has strong human resources or just like very, heavily compliance driven, or I don't even know what the right makeup of people, but like I think a lot of people think that it's only there to protect the company, and every
Yes.
answer you get is so that it's protecting the company, and they don't have any care about the individuals, which that's not my personal or professional experience.
Absolutely. No, I love that. I love that. I know that I've heard, well, HR says they have an open door policy, but I don't know. Sometimes that door is closed. Well, sometimes that door does need to be closed to get the
Yeah.
deep work done. It doesn't mean they don't. It doesn't mean they don't care. So no, I love that you paint that picture of it is an and both. And I say to those, hey, if you see something that's out of balance, well, be curious and ask that
Hmm.
question. Don't make that assumption. So love that. Love that. And then you can't pour, none of us can, from an empty cup. So what's your favorite way to recharge when you're outside of the office?
Yeah. I mean, I love, massages and those kinds of things. I do love to get massages and pedicures quite frequently. And live music is another one for
Ah,
me.
yes.
Um, yeah, those are the main ones. Spending time with my
Love it.
family and friends, But yeah, I'm definitely I cherish alone time for a little bit each day, and so.
Love it. Love it. Love it. That's self care. And I know that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but we do
Hmm.
have to make sure that that cup stays refilled, that we are making those assessments of who's showing up, in the spaces that we're called in to be. Michelle, this has been, and I had no doubt, just an uplifting conversation. I know that our audience will feel the same way. You've shared glimpses into your story, which
Uh-huh.
is always a great connecting point. And you've given us a little bit of the experience and taste of the amazing work that's happening through Thinkery. If people want to connect with Thinkery in your area, just learn more about what's happening, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, anywhere online. I mean, we have our social media and we have our website. It's thinkeryaustin.org. Believe it's Thinkery ATX on social. So yeah, check out our website. You can learn more about us. And if you're in Austin, Texas, definitely come by.
Fantastic. Well, I plan, if I make it that direction, that will be a plan, and I will come in and experience through the eyes of a child.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that would be awesome. Your passion and insights have truly been energizing today.
Thank
And
you.
and I really appreciate you being willing to be so open and genuine and authentic in the space. I know that's not always the way that human resources is seen. And so
Yeah.
this is a great way for people to get the human side of the resource, and so greatly
Thanks for
appreciate.
letting me share with you.
Absolutely. It's been just a pleasure. As we wrap up, I want all of us to remember that we each bring our own special flavor to the mix of relational leadership. So until we're together again next time, let's keep stirring things up and making an impact and being better together. Thanks.
Thank you.
Before we sign off today, I want to send out huge appreciation to our listeners for tuning in. I hope you felt seen, heard, and inspired to level up your own leadership journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you're ready to level up your leadership, asking for a friend, or interested in being a guest on the show, connect with me at cultivateforgood.com. That's cultivateforgood.com. Remember, as leaders, we're either driving progress or we're driving the problem. So let's grow together.